So want to hear one of the most one of the most female stories ever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is from Metro.
Let me guess. It started off with I
spent 10,000 pounds while manic, and my bank wrote off the debt.
I knew it.
I spent 10,000 pounds while manic, and my bank wrote off the debt.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put her up on the screen.
I fucking knew it was going to start with I.
There she is.
It always does. It always does.
After 5 years of law school training at a prestigious law firm and practicing as an associate solicitor over a short space of time, in November 2019, I decided to hand my resignation, buy a dog, move onto a barge, and take out a loan of 10,000 pounds. The money was scarcely easy to access, too. I applied through my banking app on the evening of 11 p.m. with very few questions asked about what I needed the short amount for. So she's already blaming them for giving her the money. I didn't speak to anyone as part of the application process. Had this been a requirement, Nationwide might have realized that something was very wrong. It's the bank's fault that she did this. This is the narrative, okay? Instead, they dutifully approved my request, and over the next 10 days, I spent it all on absurd transactions. In one evening alone, I spent $700 on plants and rugs for my new boat, and an additional $200 buying the same top in 8 different colors. Days later, I contacted a carpenter and I asked him to build bookshelves on my boat. While fitting these, he explained that he was in debt and couldn't feed his 4 children and wife. When he finished the job, I decided to pay him for work and also give him an additional $2,000 so he could save his family, not her money. I told him he didn't have to worry about paying me back at the time. This all felt perfectly rational. Then, ironically, I was left destitute. It's not irony.
Yeah, that's...
How is that irony? How is that irony?
Can I correct that?
Yeah.
Incidentally, I was left destitute.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's not how it works. Like you see, look, she's normal.
Oh, wow.
The cause of my erratic behavior? Type 1 bipolar disorder.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Of which one of the many symptoms is mania.
Mm-hmm.
Not the wrestle kind, the normal kind.
What about botchamania?
AEW will take it down. Psychology condition that causes a person to experience unreasonable euphoria, intense moods of hyperactivity.
And an inability to ever take responsibility for anything they do.
Correct.
That's the main symptom.
Mm-hmm. We also call it modern dating.
Hey, guys, I'm not responsible for the financial fraud I engaged in or any of the people whose lives I ruined. I'm sick. Isn't that great? Isn't that a fucking great out?
Why are people that bipolar, why are the majority of them women?
Because they're lying, and honestly, women just... Here's the thing. Most of you don't have bipolar disorder. Most of you women just do whatever the fuck you want, and most of you women just have really poor, selfish instincts. So, because you feel more, you guys think that you're actually much more sensitive and altruistic than men are. But the truth is that you feel whenever you feel like feeling. But whenever you're just doing some selfish shit, you're able to shut those emotions off like a fucking faucet. And then when you want to get out of trouble, you can always find some Upper West Side who will write you a script, give you, basically absolve you of all your sins without having to go to a church and tell you it's okay. It's all right that you cheated on all of your every boyfriend you've ever had. It's okay that you've ripped off banks. You're sick. It's a sickness.
One of the most prevalent side effects is risky or impulsive behavior, including gambling and reckless spending. Before 2018, I was, for all intents and purposes, a successful and ambitious person. I worked hard, took pride in my achievements, and paid my taxes. Then, for reasons both genetic and environmental, bipolar rather than ambition began to define me. Bipolar runs in my family. My grandma took her own life due to the illness, and my sister also suffers from the disorder. So she was genetically predisposed. However, the stress of sleeplessness and demands of my corporate law acted as a catalyst, activating the illness and culminating accumulating in a diagnosis in January 2018 and 3.5 weeks in a psychiatric facility. Things
Is her
continue.
last name DuPont?
No, she's not a DuPont. I don't believe. Things continue to get worse leading up to 2019 episode, which saw me apply for the loan. Following that, credit card reminders, interest fees, and default notices became part of my day-to-day life. The consequences of quitting law just before the pandemic while struggling with unprecedented disorder pulled me into cycles of extreme depression and instability. Eventually, I was forced to move back home with my parents. While living with them, my mania subsided, and I thought I could apply for less stressful roles in cafes or shops when the pandemic restrictions eased. Yes.
So when she stopped having to support herself, didn't have to go to a job anymore,
She felt better.
but also had to start living under her parents' house, where if she engaged in certain patterns of behavior that she did outside of her parents' house, she probably would have been thrown out into the streets. Suddenly it subsided? Is that what you're telling me?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
However, in November 2020, my mania returned. In a heightened state, I found myself venturing to an abandoned mental asylum in North Wales. I had always been drawn to dilapidated buildings and decided my boyfriend and I should go explore.
You mean your boyfriend should pay for it?
Yes.
Okay.
My boyfriend and I had only been together a few months at this point, and although he knew I had bipolar, he wasn't familiar enough with me or the symptoms to question my erratic behavior. It's his fault. Again, keep in mind in this story, it's the bank's fault, it's her family's
It's always
fault,
their
it's
fault.
pandemic's
It's everyone's fault.
it's the boyfriend's fault. I just seem fun and spontaneous. Mania doesn't always look like madness.
What's this broad's name?
Her name is Dorothy Herson.
Ugh.
Dorothy Herson. My boyfriend and I have been only together a few months. Okay. I had no fear for my safety. Mania is marked by grandiosity and convictions that one is invincible. So, despite the fact that the walls were crumbling and the floors were torn apart, I felt elated, godlike even, and climbed higher and higher. It never occurred to me that I could be hurt. The last thing I remember was the rotting floor splitting beneath my right foot. I fell through the... I have a picture. I fell through the floor, crushing my spine, shattering my left foot, and sustaining, among other things, a dislocation of my mid-tarsal joints, from which left me in chronic pain probably for the rest of my life. The prospect of earning back $10,000 I owed had already been slim, but following my injury, I felt non-existent. After being discharged, I could barely leave my bed without help. The notion of waitressing was a fantasy. Job applications were met with rejections, while the default notices demanded repayment, and the money I owed continued to stack up. Anyone who has been made bankrupt can probably relate to the unbearable feeling of shame and fear. Though I knew my insolvency was a direct consequence of my bipolar. Remember, not her action, her disease. I didn't mean to kill those kids. I was drunk. I didn't tell any of my friends, family, or even my boyfriend about my debt. I was terrified that he would find out, or worse, that they would try to help me. I couldn't bear the shame of them doing so, so the shame of unpayable debts, being relocated from the bank to my people I loved. Debt-related stress is a particular blend of anxiety and paralysis. I was overcome with panic because the debts were so enormous and unpayable. I would avoid thinking of talking about them or doing anything that would remind me of the existence. If I engaged with the debt, I would become suicidal. I would think there is nothing I can do. There's no other way out. I was helpless to change my circumstances. I lying in my bed for weeks, went by applying for low-stress, non-physical jobs. So she had all this money that she owed, but she also didn't want to apply for any jobs that made money. By Christmas 2020, I found myself sobbing to my doctor, explaining that I was suicidal and feared that I would not make it through the year. This doctor referred me to a psychiatrist, agreed to change my medication to see if revised combination could help improve my mood, and called me regularly over the period, blah, 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 blah. So just over a year after taking out a loan, I had become too unwell to correspond directly with my bank. And so I finally broke down and told my mom everything. I relinquished my control over my accounts to my mom, who, having 2 daughters with bipolar, was now used to the problem and the accompanying conditions. Let's see here. Corporate attitudes or mental health illness are slowly shifting. Quiet recognition of it. Okay, I'm trying to get to the part where they wrote it off.
I do like that the It says Mum would intercept default notices
Yeah.
for fear they would push me. So you made it, as I predicted at the beginning of this article, you've made a huge mess of everything. Your mother's life, your family's life. You stole from the, which, by the way, I'm not crying for the bank, but you did.
No, I'm not, I'm
You
not.
stole from the bank. You drove this poor boyfriend fucking insane. You've done everything the way you want to do it on your terms, and now that you've fucked everything up like any other white woman, I'm tired. And then just you deal with all this. I have to go lay down. My fibromyalgia's acting up. You know what I mean? And you're going to be milking that fake ass injury forever now. God, white women are just the worst.
Mom would intercept debt notices for fear they would push me to suicide. She eventually took up the correspondence with the bank on my behalf, and in a desperate attempt, forwarded my health records onto them in hope that they would alleviate the pressure to return the money. She sent them both psychiatric reports expressing concern over our mental state and physical reports detailing my injuries. We didn't know how much hope this would work, but we thought it was worth a try. However, to my utter disbelief, Nationwide wrote to my mother a few months later, agreeing to write off all my debts on the basis of mental health. They confirmed that the debt would not be recorded as a bankruptcy for credit purposes. On hearing this, the past 18 months is fuck this bitch. You know why I'm mad at this? Because there's people that took out loans that run businesses in your country and our country, right? And the government shut up down. And you know what they're not doing? These banks aren't forgiving the loans of people that own a mom and pop shop, right? They're not doing that. They're not forgiving the loans of those people that actually would have worked if they were allowed to, right?
They should have closed their businesses down before COVID and got a boat.
Yeah, that's my point. So this bitch goes because, oh my, like you said, oh my God, I'm sleepy. I can't pay off my debts. And then there's people that are trying to provide for their family, and then the fucking government shut down their business. And are the banks going to forgive their loans?
Oh, no, of course not.
On hearing that the past 18 months of stress and fear began to subside, although I still don't feel confident managing my finances, I'm aware that similar thing could happen again. This is a milestone, blah, 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 blah. And we really do enjoy the system is changing to accommodate us. This is a pro-system article. This is another one that the banks are the heroes.
But, I mean...
Fuck her.
You don't feel any shame? Like, you wrote this story and you're bragging about... Like, you're bragging about this.
Yeah, she's bragging. This is a positive thing for her.
You're bragging. This is like that scene in The Big Short when the guy goes up to Steve Carell and he's like, I don't understand it. Why are these guys confessing? And he's like... Do you not get it? They're not confessing. They're bragging. Like, it's just literally like they're not even they're just bragging at this point.
Well, I have a question with this whole thing. So she gave up control to her mother, right?
Yes.
Her mom. Her mom.
Her mom.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't she say before that this whole bipolar thing is hereditary?
Yeah, so isn't her mom also bipolar?
No,
Yeah.
her sister and her grandmother. So I guess the mama got
Skipped a
spared.
generation. Okay.
Okay.
Which I always love when they say that, like, oh, yeah, you know, the mom was spared the mental illness. Oh, no, that's great. Now the mom has to take care of all these other fucking burdens.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the mental illness.
That's why Jim Brewer has bags under his eyes.